Let's talk about Yu Yu Hakusho, one of the early shonen animes. It's also got a live action adaptation. That's interesting because, to be honest, this series starts out pretty rough. Based on the original manga by Yoshihiro Togashi, who is, nowadays, better known for his manga Hunter x Hunter, Yu Yu Hakusho tells the story of a 14-year-old delinquent named Yusuke Urameshi. In this summary and review, I'm going to focus on the anime, since that's what I know the most. The series can be roughly broken down into 4 major arcs, so for the purpose of this first review, I'm going to just cover the Spirit Detective Saga, which lasts from episode 1 up until episode 25. The first thing that I want to tell you is that I really do love this series, and it's one of my all-time favorite animes. And the second thing I want to tell you is that, man, the start to this show, it's not easy. Now, I have watched the entire series through multiple times, but it's been a few years, and I've seen a lot more anime since then, so even with the nostalgia goggles on, I was still struggling to get through this rewatch. A lot of older animes have this same problem, as the first few arcs can be a mess as the show tries to figure itself out. The plot itself is pretty simple and straightforward. The emotional moments are few and far between, and the character development can be extremely limited at times. It is, at its core, a pretty standard shonen anime, but what it does have is a lot of great characters, an interesting world, and a handful of really good moments. And the tournaments, if you enjoy an anime that has a lot of fighting tournaments, and I definitely do, then this is the one for you. Yu Yu Hakusho starts off with the death of our main character, Yusuke Urameshi. Just right into it. As it turns out, Yusuke was hit by a car when he tried to save the life of a young boy who was playing in the street. This is when we find out that in this world, souls do exist, and when someone dies, they become a spirit. We then get a flashback to earlier in the day. Really? A flashback? Right now? At the very start of the series? When our main characters have just died? You know, at this point, I think that figuring out all this ghost business is way more important than introducing us to Yusuke's childhood friend Keiko, but I guess this is what we're doing now. Rolling back the clock several hours earlier, Keiko cleverly points out that Yusuke isn't like the other boys. He wears green when all the other boys wear blue. I mean, doesn't that just scream bad boy to you? There's some back and forth with his principal, then Yusuke goes home and gets into it with his mom, and at this point, you're like, what are we supposed to like about this guy? And then we get introduced to the man himself, Kuwabara, a fellow teenage delinquent who goes to the same school as Yusuke. You know, he might be the comedic relief of the series, but you gotta appreciate a guy who takes 156 losses in a row and keeps trying. We have only begun to scratch the surface of the best character in this entire series. Anyway, Yusuke beats him up in like 7 seconds, and then we're finally back to the opening scene. Now, the very much ghost Yusuke meets Botan, the ferryman of the dead, who tells Yusuke that had he done nothing, the car would have swerved and the boy would have been perfectly fine. He actually sacrificed his life for nothing. This actually throws off Spirit World's plan for Yusuke, as he wasn't supposed to die at this point. You know, this brings up an interesting point about the series, because since Spirit World apparently knows when everyone is supposed to die, it supposedly confirms the existence of fate and destiny in this universe. But this point is just then completely ignored after this, since it's never brought up again. Botan even says that this only happens every 100 years or so, but even if it only happens every now and then, doesn't that still change the fates of everyone who interacts with Yusuke from this point on? Well, anyway, enough talk about predestination and the consequences of our actions. We've got things to do. Because of his sacrifice, Botan offers Yusuke the chance to return to life, but Yusuke declines, preferring to stay as a spirit. Okay, buddy, you do you. However, at his wake, he sees how his death affected his mother, his best friend Keiko, and the man Kuwabara, and decides to accept the offer. We then meet Koenma, the son of Enma, or Yama in the English version. co-ruler of the spirit world, the place where souls go to find their final resting place. Koenma, being a toddler, is literally one of the best gags ever. And man, you never get tired of ogres running the afterlife, no matter what the anime. Yusuke is then given a spirit egg to watch over, as it's revealed that, depending on his actions, the egg could hatch into a monster that devours his soul, or it could lead to his revival. Yusuke then appears to Keiko in her dreams to tell her that he's coming back, but she doesn't believe him. So he has to find someone to possess, but who can he find on such short notice who has strong enough spiritual awareness and was also close to Yusuke that he can possess? Oh, hello there, Kuwabara. We're going to speed through some things as Yusuke, in Kuwabara's body, is able to convince Keiko that he's coming back to life, and she and his mother find out that Yusuke's heart is beating again. Which is weird, because if Yusuke's heart is beating again, doesn't that mean that he's technically alive? Now that I think about it, I really like the relationship between Keiko and Yusuke. I just don't believe it could happen, because honestly, Yusuke just really doesn't bring much to the table. I mean, Keiko is pretty, she's super popular, she's smart, hardworking, and she's super honest, and Yusuke is, well, none of those things. I mean, this trope goes way past anime, and I do like Yusuke because deep down he's a really good guy, but honestly, she can do much, much better. We then go on a weird side adventure where Yusuke has to help Kuwabara beat a corrupt teacher by not fighting for a week, and he also has to pass a science exam. But of course, that's the man Kuwabara for you. Always gotta be protecting people, helping out his friends, taking beatings. Man, the depictions of Japanese middle schools is so weird in animes. If this was your only exposure to school life in Japan, it would look like there's just roving gangs of young thugs around each corner and evil teachers who are out to get you. There's some ghost possession going on. Yusuke proves to us that women can beat up bullies too, and Mr. Tanaka comes to save the day. Koenma then sends an investigator, Sayaka, to check on Yusuke's progress. Sayaka decides that the best way to do this is to investigate Yusuke's only friend. We learn again that Keiko is smart, athletic, pious, and super popular. She's really the ideal girl. Remind me again, why does she like Yusuke? Keiko goes to watch over Yusuke's body, and we find out that someone has been setting fires in the area. And of course, during the short time that Keiko is away, the arsonist just so happens to decide that this is the perfect time to set Yusuke's house on fire. Wow, what a coincidence. Unfortunately, this happens a lot in this series. Something is set up, and then 5 minutes later, it's immediately paid off with no development. By the way, Yusuke's mother knows that he's coming back to life soon, and she just up and abandons his body there. And all she does is leave a note for Keiko. That's it. She really has no characterization other than the fact that she's a bad mother. Keiko now has to run into the fire to save Yusuke's body, but the flames are just too strong. Yusuke now has to make a really difficult, incredibly hard decision. He can either sacrifice his spirit egg and throw it into the fire to save Keiko and thus remain dead, or he can not throw it into the fire, not save Keiko, and still remain dead because his body would have burned up anyway, and he needs his body to come back to life. Again, there's really not much of a dilemma here, is there? He can either stay dead and save Keiko, or he can stay dead and not save Keiko. So Yusuke chooses to save Keiko, big shock, and throws the egg into the fire, which creates a safe pathway for her. Then the man himself, Kuwabara, shows up in the nick of time to help her save Yusuke's body. I'll say it again, Kuwabara making the big plays. Did you know that he's the comic relief of the series? In between his hero work, keeping people safe, and taking care of kittens? Koenma then appears and tells Yusuke that he made the right decision, and because of that, he can now return to life. Wow, what a plot twist. We now have some more hijinks as Yusuke is told he has to have someone kiss him within 24 hours in order for his soul to return to his body, or else he has to wait 50 more years. Rules, man, they always get you. His mom then abandons his body to go out once again, affirming her bad mom status, and this time she doesn't even leave a note. And Kuwabara is not down for it, so Yusuke goes to the most obvious choice, Keiko. And she does, bringing Yusuke back to life. Again, Keiko is just great, but unfortunately, from this point on, she's forever just going to be the damsel in distress. That's just so shonen of her. And then a demon appears. Yeah, this literally came out of nowhere, but I guess if you have spirits then you might as well have demons as well. The B plot involves a demon who kidnaps Kuwabara's pet kitten and is trying to, I guess, be the biggest middle school bully out there. It's a small goal for a very small demon, so I guess it makes sense. These first few episodes are just really random. So much so that you don't realize that this show is now going to transform itself into a shonen detective anime for exactly 3 episodes. Detective Conan, this show is not. Also, the narrator just tells you what's going to happen in each episode. We're literally 6 episodes in, and we're already getting recaps and spoilers. It's kinda weird. It's like, yeah, I know, I just watched the episode. So Yusuke is alive again, and no one bothers to ask him what happened. I mean, he was totally 100% dead, and people saw his body. The students at his school are freaked out for like 10 seconds, and then everyone just moves on like nothing ever happened. I think that if I knew someone who had come back to life, I'd ask a really difficult question. Something like, so how did you come back to life? But nope, the mysteries of life and death will remain mysteries. Now, Koenma, in his infinite wisdom, has decided to make Yusuke a spirit detective. This 14-year-old kid with no detective abilities, 0 real-world skills other than street fighting, who barely goes to school and has shown no intelligence, is going to be a detective now. This decision is just insane when you think about it. You know, Batman had to study and get degrees, and he also had to travel all around the world and learn from different masters to become a great detective. And this random kid just gets brought back to life, and it's like, okay buddy, go out there and beat some demons. Qualifications? I don't even know what that word means. Yusuke is then assigned to track down 3 stolen artifacts, now in the hands of 3 different demons. Yes, this has now become a show about fighting demons. So Yusuke is now a spirit detective, mostly because Koenma doesn't want his dad to find out that someone stole some artifacts while he was away. Oh, and by the way, up until this point, Yusuke has shown no superhuman strength, no superhuman speed, or any special abilities. He's only demonstrated above average fighting ability, and this is only when compared to fighting other teenage delinquents. And the demons in this world are actual demons who actually have super speed, super strength, and a variety of special human killing powers. Also, by the way, a bit of future knowledge here. I want you to keep this in the back of your mind throughout this series, that Spirit World does in fact have a military force with experienced and powerful warriors. Just file that little nugget away in the back of your mind for now. Botan just casually drops that Yusuke now has spirit powers. Like, what? Did I miss something? They barely even tell you what spirit power is or how it works in this series, and it's the core of their power system. Just, yup, you got spirit powers now, buddy. Move on. Koenma teaches Yusuke about the spirit gun, where he can concentrate his spirit energy and fire it from his finger to use against the demons. Wait, no, sorry, I was wrong. He teaches Yusuke how to fire his spirit at normal human beings because A, Koenma makes really dumb decisions all the time, and B, Yusuke makes really dumb decisions all the time. But at least Yusuke is an actual 14-year-old boy, so he has an excuse to do dumb stuff. While Koenma just looks like a kid, but he's over 600 years old and has no excuse. Big spoiler alert. Koenma is pretty incompetent and terrible at his job throughout this entire series. Still no super strength or speed though, or, you know, training, explanations. Any semblance of reason? Nope, just send a kid out to fight some demons. Okay. Yusuke also has to be careful with his spirit gun because he can only use it a single time each day until he can somehow increase his spirit energy. How does he do that, you may ask? No idea, and Koenma never teaches him how. At this point, I want to remind you guys that I really do love this anime, but this is just kinda ridiculous. This kid literally just came back to life a few days ago. And yeah, he has a small amount of spirit power now, but at least train the kid. You can do it in a montage, just compress a few weeks of training into 20 seconds of on-screen time. Don't just hand him a spirit gun and send him on his way. Anyway, since Yusuke was handed a spirit gun and sent on his way, he randomly walks down the street and finds a kid whose soul leaves his body, which leads him straight to the first demon, Goki. Yep, that's all it took. I mean, Yusuke was probably only traveling maybe 5 miles from his school, and as luck would have it, on the entire Earth, among billions of people and hundreds of countries, he just so happens to run into the actual demon he's supposed to be looking for. He had zero clues, had no means to track down either the demon or the artifact that he stole, and didn't even know what direction to go in, but here we are. Look, the writing at the start of this series is really not that good. Things just happen because we need to move on to the next plot point, not because there's any actual thought put into them. There are a lot of easy explanations that could have been used, like maybe the city is a hub for demon activity, or Spirit World can actually track down these thieves, or even simpler, just give Yusuke a device that points in the right direction. Basically, just go that way. But no, the thieves break into Spirit World, which is literally on another plane of existence. They disappear, and then they reappear a few miles from where Yusuke is. Okay. But I promise you, it gets way better in literally 2 more episodes, so we just need to power on through this. Anyway, Botan, being the audience, points out how dumb Koenma is, because he is, and he's like, my dad will get mad at me and maybe cause some earthquakes if I don't get those artifacts back, but despite the fact that I have an entire army of ogres and super special powers myself, my only option is to get this kid killed instead. 4D chess move right there, Koenma. You just always gotta be thinking. So back to the story, the demon Goki goes into a forest and meets up with the other 2 thieves, Hiei and Kurama. Yup. All 3 thieves were within walking distance of Yusuke this entire time. Kurama leaves and Hiei, I guess, goes after him? We'll talk more about them later. Goki has been using his artifact, the Orb of Bass, to steal and devour the souls of children, which of course, Yusuke is not going to stand for. He tries to fight Goki, and of course, since Goki is a demon with super strength, all he does is pound on Yusuke for most of the fight. Before he can kill Yusuke though, he's distracted by the sound of Botan pretending to be a mob of people and retreats, leaving behind a bruised and beaten Yusuke. Sometime later, back at Yusuke's home, Botan gives Yusuke a demon compass so he can track down the thieves again. Wait. What? You give Yusuke a way of tracking demons now? You could have had Koenma give Yusuke this item last episode, and the issue of how Yusuke found the demons would have been fixed. Not entirely, since it doesn't eliminate the fact that there's no actual reason why the demons are here in this one specific city, as opposed to every other possible location on the face of the earth, but it would have helped. Botan also gives him a ring that concentrates his power to make his spirit gun even more powerful. Again, freaking Koenma, man. Why didn't you just give these things to Yusuke yesterday? I do have to say though, that I really appreciate the fact that Yusuke is pushing himself through his injuries to save these innocent children, just like how he sacrificed himself at the start of the show. He's just a good kid trying his best, which is really the entire plot of this series. Yusuke then finds Goki again, but he's unable to do any actual damage, as in addition to his super strength, Goki also has skin that's like steel. Botan though comes in for the assist, as she actually, cares about Yusuke, and he's able to take out Goki by shooting his spirit gun through the demon's mouth. He may not have book smarts, but don't think he can't strategize. First artifact down. Yusuke, who's still pretty injured, is then found by the second thief Kuranma, who has the second artifact, the Forlorn Hope, which has the power to grant the user a wish in return for their life. Kuranma wants to save his mother, who is a human and is currently suffering from some unknown illness. Kuranma, by the way, is a fox demon who took over the body of a baby while they were in their mother's womb, basically fusing with that baby and taking over its life just so that he could recover his demonic strength. This will pretty much just be used as the backstory of a different character in a different anime in the future, by the way. Speaking of Kuranma, I want to take this time to talk about great character writing. When it comes to a character, I think that two super important aspects are backstory and motivation, and Kuranma definitely has both. He did a terrible thing by fusing with an innocent baby to save himself, but he's grown to love his human mother. He doesn't want to fight, he's just trying to save his mother's life. I found that throughout this series, Kuranma constantly has the most concise and clear writing, and we can easily understand who he is. Unlike Hiei, who I think has really bad character writing. More on that later. Yusuke, believing that Kuranma's death would give his mother pain and forgetting the fact that, well, this also applies to himself as he also has a mother and that he just literally came back to life like a few days ago, also tries to give up his life to the mirror. The mirror, though, turns out to be a pretty good guy, or I guess a pretty nice mirror, and only takes a little energy from both of them in order to save Kuranma's mother. Second artifact down. The last thief is Hiei, a character that is totally not prototype Sasuke, who has the final artifact, the Shadow Sword, which has the power to turn humans into low-level demons, basically creating an army of mindless zombies to which he can rule the world. Let's see. Black hair, super fast, uses a sword, implants eyes into his body to increase his powers, eventually will learn how to control fire. He even has a tragic backstory where people abandon him as a baby, making him a loner. Another anime is totally not going to just rip off his character in the future. But for now, he's just the big bad of the episode. He'll laugh maniacally, kidnap hostages, and carry out his plans for world domination. All aspects that he will then completely abandon after this episode and never ever try again. Anyway, Hiei kidnaps Keiko and demands both the orb and the mirror for her return, and he's also cut her with the sword, which is now slowly turning her into a demon. He's also taken a hold of several more humans to do his bidding, using the power of his eye, the Jagan. Hiei informs Yusuke that the antidote for the transformation is in the hilt of the sword, and then starts to monologue at him until Yusuke attacks. This is the most that Hiei will talk throughout this entire series. Hiei tries to confuse Yusuke with his after images. Basically, he's just moving so fast that he appears to be in multiple places. But Yusuke reacts to the real one and lands a punch on him. And now we come to Hiei's demon transformation, which looks, in all honesty, extremely lame. He basically just turns green against a bunch of eyes across his body. I mean, I don't know about you, but I wouldn't want a bunch of liabilities all across my body, not to mention if he gets dust in them. At this point, let's address the elephant in the room. If you saw any of the spoilers, for example, the intro song, the mid-episode eye catchers, or the ending song, you'll know that both Kuranma and Hiei are going to become main characters. However, although Kuranma was always supposed to become a main character, Hiei was not, and thus how he acts in this episode, his really lame demon form, and the fact that he monologues, kidnapping people, all this stuff, it only happens because he wasn't supposed to last beyond this episode. Because of his popularity, Hiei will be brought back and folded into the main group later. But for now, he just looks really lame as a demon. And I think even the author realized that because we almost never see Hiei take on his demonic form after this episode. And for the entire rest of the series. It's almost like he's admitting that regular Hiei looks really cool, Demon Hiei does not, and even in future fights where they need more power, Hiei never transforms back into his demonic form, despite the fact that doing so should make him more powerful. While Botan does her best to help Keiko, Kurama has arrived. Yay! And by helping, I mean he just lets Hiei impale him with his sword. But this also allows Kurama to blind Hiei with his blood, shutting off the powers of the Jigan Eye. Unable to keep up with Hiei's super speed, Yusuke instead fires his spirit gun and bounces it off the mirror of the Forlorn Hope, hitting Hiei and finally defeating him. Gee, I hope he's not dead. Keiko receives the antidote, and the artifacts are returned to the spirit world, but Koima's dad still finds out about what happened because of course he would, and punishes him. Alright, 3 quick Spirit Detective episodes down where Yusuke does no actual detective work. We are now moving on in our story to our very first tournament arc. Yes! A badass old master combined with a martial arts tournament? That's my bread and butter. We finally get a scene change as we head out to the countryside. This is what I live for in shonens. So, sometime later, at least a day I guess, Yusuke is bribed by Botan with tickets to go see a martial arts competition as long as he agrees to go and enter a different martial arts competition. It's literally like, hey, do you want these basketball tickets? Well, go out and play college basketball first, then you'll get your tickets. The tournament is being held by Genkai, a powerful psychic looking for a pupil to pass on her techniques. Genkai embodies the trope of the old martial arts master who may not seem formidable, but she'll literally beat her lessons into you. In my opinion, she's probably top 5 in all anime for best martial arts master. She doesn't take anything from anyone. She's also a terrible, terrible person, but more on that later. Koenma knows that a demon named Rando has disguised himself and entered the tournament to learn Genkai's powers as well. Yusuke's job is to take him down. However, this demon is different from the first 3 that Yusuke just faced. He's killed and stolen the powers of 99 psychics already. This means that Yusuke, who still has no training and somehow miraculously managed not to die during the first mission, is once again sent to fight a demon that was powerful enough to defeat almost 100 skilled and powerful psychics. Again, great job there, Koenma, always making the smart plays. Among all the gathered fighters here at this tournament is also the man himself, Kuwabara, who apparently wants to know why he now has spiritual powers? You and me both, buddy. You and me both. He also somehow knows that Genkai can use the spirit wave technique, despite the fact that a week ago he didn't even know that ghosts existed or that spiritual powers were even real. Okay, moving on. The first test is to turn a piece of paper red using your spirit power, which weeds out all the people without powers. And the second is a series of arcade games which test your strength, awareness, and spiritual energy. For you people out there who love power levels, this is our first hint that this series will, in fact, feature power levels. Well, sort of. After hanging out in the arcade, doing a little bit of karaoke, and enjoying some light shows, the final 20 contenders then have to travel through the dark forest, which is filled with lots of traps, snakes, and wild animals. It's extremely dangerous and a lot of people will get trapped, though Genkai does say that she'll go and rescue the survivors later. In the middle of the forest is also a demon bat named Baltok, who Yusuke just beats up because he doesn't have any spiritual awareness and he literally just ran in a straight line. You know, they may not call it the Forest of Death, but it might as well be. Also, Genkai is pretty ruthless here. I'm just saying. The man himself, Kuwabara, reaches the end first because he's the man. Yusuke, though, misses the time limit since he was busy taking out Baldock, but Genkai lets him continue on anyway. I think she sees some potential in this one. The final 8 contenders are then paired off for one-on-one matches. The first round takes place in a temple that is entirely pitch black, which requires the fighters to utilize their spiritual awareness. Yusuke and his lack of spiritual awareness will totally not need any sort of plot contrivance to get through this one. Again, this is all great. An old temple, pitch darkness, a demon lurking around. This arc is just pure greatness. We also get to look at each fighter's spiritual power ranking, something that we'll never see again. During Kuwabara's fight, he takes quite the beating, as usual, but when his opponent breaks his wooden sword on him, Kuwabara is then able to channel his energy into that broken piece and create basically a spirit lightsaber and knocks out his opponent. Man, the guy saves people from burning buildings, he cares about his friends, protects kittens, and he can also summon a freaking energy sword? Sorry Kuwabara, you're just not as appreciated as you should be. Yusuke, on the other hand, has to fight an opponent that's using a helmet that helps him detect spirit energy. Because of his bad spiritual awareness, Yusuke is struggling with the darkness, as expected, until he somehow finds a cigarette butt that Genkai had thrown away earlier and manages to plant it on his opponent, allowing him to see a small flicker of light and fire off his spirit gun, winning him the match. I mean, it's not too bad, but you only get this one, okay? The story better not give you any more lucky coincidences like this moving forward. I know that from here on out, Yusuke will win using just his hard work and the skills he's been developing this entire time. And what skills did he learn? Well, so far, the only lesson Yusuke ever got was how to fire his spirit gun. As for Kuwabara, well, he got nothing. How exactly are these two street toughs able to fight against these master martial artists, assassins, and ninjas who have actually been training their special abilities for years and years and years? Most of these guys are grown adults with way more experience than just some random schoolyard fights. Again, don't think about it, just keep moving. That's the motto of this series. Don't think about it, just keep moving. In the final four, which takes place on a swampy marsh, Yusuke faces off against Kazemaru, who possesses both a spirit cannon and spirit-seeking exploding shuriken. That's right, they not only explode, but they will seek out their opponent by their spirit energy and keep following them until they do. An enemy that uses a projectile that chases after their opponent that will ultimately lead to their defeat. Have I seen this before in a different anime? Probably not. Yusuke, having no other choice, does what everyone else does in this situation, obviously, and runs directly at his opponent, but then suddenly disappears. This forces Kazemaru to blow up his own spirit-seeking shurikens, resulting in a massive explosion that takes him out. And I have to say that this bit is just hilarious, because for a moment, you think that Yusuke might have somehow gained super speed, or he learned some trick, but no, he literally just fell into a swamp and managed to get the win. This one I can appreciate, even though this is the second straight contrivance in a row for Yusuke. Kuwabara then faces off against Shorin, and we finally remember that there's this demon named Rando that we're supposed to be looking for? Well, the narrator has been telling us this for a couple of episodes, even showing us how he looks like in his demon form, but it's not like Yusuke has been doing any sort of investigating. I mean, it's not like he's a detective or anything. It's a battle of swords versus balls, as Shorin tries some energy attacks, only for Kuwabara to bat them back at him. Then, I think Kuwabara, falls asleep or something, because he just stands there while Shorin starts to chant a really long spell. My guy, he's literally 10 feet away. Note that for the future, if you're in a fight with magic powers and your opponent puts his fingers together and starts to cast a spell on you, one that you can actually hear them saying, don't let them finish. Shorin, who is revealed to be the demon Rando, big surprise, finishes his spell and shrinks Kuwabara down in size, and then nearly crushes him to death. This part is actually pretty terrifying when you watch it. Kuwabara loses, obviously, and Yusuke faces off against Rando in the finals, who is forced to take on his real demonic form. See, Hiei, this is what every other demon does when they're losing. Rando tries a bunch of different techniques, including shooting out a long white sheet that he uses to bind Yusuke. He also summons some demon fish. I don't know, man. This is the show we're watching. So, despite the fact that we just saw a minute ago that these demon fish literally devour anything that gets close to them, Yusuke falls into the water and survives for a while because of course he does. Because of course he does. Kuwabara, who is now able to separate his soul from his body, I don't know, because of the power of hopes and dreams, I guess, provides him with some protagonist fuel, and Yusuke powers up to the next level. After an epic 2-second spirit gun battle between the two of them, yup, this will literally be the beam clash to remember for years to come, Rando tries his shrinking technique again, but because Yusuke lucked up and got moss in his ears, he can't hear the spell and it backfires. Yusuke is now able to deliver an elbow to the now miniaturized Rando, winning him the fight and the tournament as a whole. By the way, I'm just going to say it now. Something I stated at the start of this, but Genkai is just a terrible person. This entire time, she's like, well, it's fine if an evil demon learns my powers and then goes on to kill more people. It's fine. That's fine. Everything is fine. And you might say, well, she knew that Yusuke was going to win. Did she? What exactly is your proof? Because she never says anything to the contrary. Look, despite all this, I do like Genkai overall, and she is a good teacher. This is just not a good look for her. Yusuke is super happy because now that he's completed his mission, he can go and watch combat sports after, participating in combat sports. Did you forget that he had to be bribed to do all this? But sadly, no, I'm sorry Yusuke, because of course, since he won the tournament, he now has to become Genkai's student. Genkai heals up Kuwabara because, he's in the next arc, and probably later on goes back and saves all those losers in the forest, while Botan takes away the still shrunken Rando. And thus, Yusuke begins his massive, super awesome, character-defining, insanely intensive training arc, which will last only until the start of the very next episode. Wait, you didn't want to actually see any of this training, did you? Nope, didn't think so. Time for the next story. And if you think that this anime is just jam-packed with stuff, you would be right. It doesn't get very fillery until like 50 more episodes later. So yeah, 6 months later in the dub, but in actuality, only 1 month later, Yusuke runs away from Genkai. He returns home triumphant from his training, having mastered all there is to know from one of the strongest human beings on the entire planet in just 4 weeks. Now that's what I call progress. So, side tangent for just a moment, not actually related to this anime. One of my favorite things from Dragon Ball was seeing all those interesting and unique ways that Master Roshi trained Goku and Krillin, delivering milk, doing field work, dodging bees, taking afternoon naps. Man, those episodes were so great. It really made me grow closer to both of them as I watched their daily struggles and their gradual improvement over the course of many, many months. Yeah, you pushed that boulder, little Krillin. You're the best character ever. Anyway, back to less than 34 seconds of training between episodes. Oh, Keiko, even though he's back, you'll always just be waiting for him. And Kuwabara's back. Yay! I missed you, buddy. For, the 3 minutes that you were off screen? Oh yeah, 20-second training montage. I take back everything I just said a moment ago. However, this happy reunion is ruined when demonically possessed humans attack Yusuke and Kuwabara. Wait a minute, a demon plot to control humans and use them basically as zombies? What does this remind me of? I swear, I just watched something with a super similar plot line. Anyway, back to this unique plot line. Makai insects are now infecting humans, and it turns out that they are being summoned by the Makai Whistle, which is being controlled by the 4 Saint Beasts, powerful demons that were sealed away in their own city a long time ago. The Saint Beasts want their freedom in return for calling off the insects. Botan provides Yusuke with a communications mirror, and Spirit World creates a small portal into the city and sends Yusuke through, since that's his job that he doesn't get paid for. And Kuwabara goes too, because who else is going to jump headfirst into a demon's nest just to save thousands of innocent people? Because, that's what a hero does. Kuwabara says he's a spirit detective in his heart, and I feel the same way too, buddy. Also, there's a demon realm now, and we won't really deal with that for some time, so just file that away, just like everything else. Yusuke and Kuwabara pop out of the sky and they land on the outskirts of the city and are almost immediately attacked by the forces of the Saint Beast. And just when it seems that all hope is lost, hooray! Kurama's here! Oh, and Hiei's here too, I guess. Less than 2 minutes pass by between the time that Yusuke and Kuwabara enter the portal and the time that Kurama and Hiei arrive from the same portal, meaning that they could have literally just waited 2 minutes and had gone in together. But no, we needed this dramatic rescue where 2 bright balls of light scare away a bunch of Jawas? Wait, why do Kurama and Hiei arrive as balls of light when Yusuke and Kuwabara literally just fell from the sky as themselves? I don't think either one of them has the power to turn into a ball of light. At least they never show this ever happening again. Also, I'm talking a lot about time in this section of the anime, but it's almost like the anime just keeps forgetting what happened a few minutes earlier. Kurama and Hiei have been offered pardons for their past crimes if they help out, and Kuwabara is still just here, doing his thing, because he's a hero. The 4 of them make it into the castle, but once inside, the ceiling falls on them, forcing 3 of them to hold it up while the 4th has to pull the switch to stop it. Yusuke sends Hiei to do it since he's the fastest, and just for a moment, the show tries to tease you that Hiei won't save them, just to turn it around on you. See, Hiei is now and forever one of the good guys. There will be no more internal conflicts moving forward. Literally, like none. This is the total team development we will get throughout this entire series. What was all that about Hiei wanting to turn humans into zombie-like demons and controlling a mindless army to take over the world? Wait, that's this plot? Anyway, back to this plot. Kurama now has to face off against the first Saint Beast, Ginbu, a large stone, mostly turtle, somewhat scorpion demon who has the power to use his stones to bludgeon his foes by remotely controlling them. He's super generic. Hey guys, should maybe the 4 of us work together to take this guy out, thus conserving our overall strength? No? One-on-one fights it is. I say that, but it's fine. It's just so shonen that 3 perfectly healthy guys just stand around while the 4 fight the life or death battle. We finally get to see Kurama's true power, and he's quite the flowery guy. He uses a rose whip for a weapon, and I gotta say, Kurama is a cool guy who totally won't get copy and pasted into a future anime by the same author just without being, interesting or cool or a character. Ginbu, though, starts to spam his rock attacks, and Kurama seems to struggle for, 2 minutes before he notices a remarkably red glowing rock among all the regular non-red, non-glowing rocks flying around. Wow, if this doesn't scream RPG weakness, I don't know what does. After this super difficult fight involving both the power of observation and his clever thieving skills to grab a rock, Kurama uses Rock Smash, and that's 1 Saint Beast down. Also, Kurama in those 2 minutes of getting hit by rocks got a serious wound and can barely go on. Didn't he get stabbed previously? Oh well. What's up in the human world, you might ask? Well, zombies be about, and Botan is, doing her thing, killing some bugs, saving people's lives, and she'll run into Keiko soon, because You know, everything always takes place in the same city. Man, you know what? Botan is just great. There's no stakes in it for her. She can't die, she's already a spirit, but she's still doing her best to save as many people as she can. And what about Koenma? Well, Koenma and his army of ogres and his super secret spirit world army, they're just, you know, hanging around, watching as a city destroys itself, being useless as normal. The main man Kuwabara now demands the next fight and shows off his newly improved spirit sword, now with the ability to extend and shrink at his command. No notes. The second Saint Beast is Byakko, a man tiger who I promise you will actually last longer than 5 minutes in a fight. Hiei, still doing his best to prove his baby face, wants to take over, but Kuwabara's pride doesn't let him. Byakko, using his hairs to summon monsters that attack Kuwabara, who, in the Japanese version, asks if Byakko is actually Son Goku, harking back to the original Chinese legend, but for just a moment, it made me remember that other Goku who's not in this, and it made me a little sad. Kuwabara then gets beaten up again, what else is new? But he refuses to give up. Because Byakko was able to use his scream to turn a bridge into a small stone pathway, yes, that actually happened, Kuwabara is then able to line up the beasts and stab his sword through all of them at once before chaining them up to a tower. In the dub, he literally says, "Sword get longer." Byakko then shows that he has the ability to absorb spirit energy, which means that Kuwabara can't do anything against him, and in fact is getting stronger from each sword attack. Kuwabara, though, figures out the old pump him full of energy trick, which almost works. Byakko gets knocked off the bridge, but then, probably due to the power of being off screen for a few minutes, teleports into the next room that our team needs to make their way through. We've now reached stage 2 of the Byakko fight, the platform room filled with lava. It's supposed to be super intimidating, but I just keep thinking, man, Byakko is a tiger man from head to toe. You would think that this heat would just be unbearable to him. Also, unless Byakko can just teleport, and maybe he can, who knows? He managed to fall off the bridge, run back up a level, somehow run all the way around this room, and enter from the other side, all in the span of, I don't know, 5 minutes? Like I said, this anime just keeps forgetting what just happened from earlier in the same episode. It's insane. Kuwabara is jumping like crazy, dodging balls of energy and flying tiger claws, because Byakko needs 2 different types of projectiles. You remember 2 episodes ago when all Ginbu could do was move some rocks? Kuwabara, though, manages to pole vault his way to victory and punches Byakko in the face, sending him into the lava down below. We also get our first Kuwabara death fake out, something the show will never use again. Also, I just realized that Koenma can literally see anywhere. His TV basically gives him the power to know what every single villain is doing, what they are saying, and he never ever uses this to help our heroes in any way. In fact, in the next arc, he actually withholds important information from Yusuke that he saw on his TV. This is literally a castle in the demon realm, and Koenma is just spectating from another plane of existence. Imagine every story ever, and then add the fact that your heroes can literally just watch and listen to the enemy at all times, and just think about how that would change everything. It's insane. The 4 of them continue on, and it's Hiei's turn to face off against the 3rd Saint Beast, Seiryu, who turns out to be a blue ice dragon demon man. Hey look, Seiryu also appears as a ball of light, so maybe it is the demon power. Okay, maybe we're actually establishing a little bit of continuity? Let's keep our eyes open for more examples of this in the future. Balls of light, I mean. Byakko, having survived falling into lava somehow, arrives only to be frozen and then shattered by Seiryu, showing off his awesomeness. Seiryu, man, you look pretty cool. Definitely much better than a rock scorpion turtle and a tiger man. Seiryu then tries his ice attacks against Hiei, which proves useless, and then he's dead. Poor Seiryu, we hardly knew you. I mean, seriously, you didn't even last half an episode. Also, future information here, but Hiei is actually a fire demon, and that's why the ice type isn't very effective against him. Not that we know that, or that he will ever use fire powers now, or the last time we saw him, or even the next time we see him, or the time after that, because explanations are hard. And Hiei, why do you care now? It's almost like your personality completely changed from when we first saw you. I mean, it's good that you're, good now, but why? Tell us something about what motivates you. Why do you do the things you do? Kurama claims it's because of Yusuke, but I don't buy that. I mean, Yusuke has literally been doing nothing this entire time. He just stands around watching other people fight. But I guess that was enough, apparently. Yeah, character development. Remember that time Hiei turned a bunch of innocent human beings into demons, which is what the villain is currently doing in this story? I bet you this villain won't make it out of this arc though, because he's not cool enough. Anyway, up in the attic, the way cooler, but probably won't make it out of this arc, evil leader of the Saint Beast, Suzaku, decides to complete the supervillain cliche and sends his zombies after Keiko, because a bird told him to, because of course it did. Wait, why does anyone else know, other than our main characters, that Yusuke is a spirit detective? He's only been on 4 total missions. Even if the bad guys have the same super magic TV technology that Koenma has, Yusuke has had 0 interactions with Keiko since entering the portal. How does this make any sense? Well, it does. So back in the human realm, Botan contacts Yusuke to tell him that zombies are after Keiko, so the race is on to defeat the final Saint Beast. But oh no, a bunch of plant-looking zombies are in our way. Wait, plants that are zombies? And wow, 2 different types of zombies in the same arc. That's crazy. What are we going to do? Create a human-demon ladder to a window so that Yusuke can go and have a one-on-one fight with Suzaku while the others deal with the hordes of zombies? Because of course that's what we do. Oh, and Kurama put his arm on his stomach, reminding us that he had that 2-minute fight and that he's not feeling well. Man, it's not looking good that a couple of boulders can do so much damage to him. I hope in the future that he doesn't, I don't know, take a beating from multiple demons in a row without any lasting injuries whatsoever. That would be pretty bad. Suzaku, a phoenix demon man with the power to create lightning, appears fully for the first time. He's pretty cool looking. Yusuke is struggling against Suzaku as he's trying to fight and steal the whistle back, but Suzaku then pulls out his trump card. He can actually split himself up into 7 different beings. Botan and Keiko are doing their best to outrun the zombie horde, while Kuwabara, Kurama, and Hiei continue to fight their way through their own zombie horde. I mean, 4 against 7 would have been really interesting to see, but I guess we're just going to do a 1 against 7. And now, we get a full flashback to Yusuke's training, and this time, it almost lasts 2 whole minutes. This is before Yusuke ran away, of course. Genkai tells Yusuke that he has to push himself to become stronger, find his heart, all that normal stuff they tell you. Then we get a flashback that has some of the same reminders from the start of the series, but also includes some scenes from this same arc we're in, from the last 5 episodes. I mean, the narrator already recaps everything for us, and we literally just watched all these fights just now. We really have to recycle the scenes already? Oh, right, it's because of Hiei. He was a bad guy previously, so there are no other scenes with him in it, other than him being bad. Okay, that makes sense. Speaking of which, the guys are now stuck on a tiny piece of staircase that somehow didn't get broken. It's almost like we can't think of any other way to keep them out of this fight, so instead they're now on an RPG quest, and they have to figure out a way to clear this level. I really hope you guys don't completely miss the final battle though. Yusuke tries his desperation move, using up all of his spirit energy to take out the Suzakus, only to have one fallen Suzaku survive and revive the others. Just when all hope is lost, Yusuke sees the image of Keiko on the TV screen with zombies about to get to her, and he supercharges his own spirit gun with his own life energy, destroying all the Suzakus and the Makai whistle in one massive blast. Everyone is saved as the Makai insects all decide to pull a droid army years before episode 1 and self-destruct. And oh hey, the guys have made it. Guess they solved that crumbling staircase problem. Yusuke though, dies for the second time, having used up all of his life energy in that last, final, desperate attack. But, oh wait! Best guy Kuwabara, he's here, and he transfers some of his own life energy to Yusuke, keeping him alive. Kuwabara, man, never gets paid, never gets the girl, but always coming in clutch. The hero we need, but not the one we deserve. And then the four of them go home. And let's get ready for the last arc in the first part of this series, which will introduce one of the greatest anime villains of all time. A hurricane of sheer shonen awesomeness is about to descend upon us, the likes of which we never saw coming, and it will turn this anime into the legend that it is. One sunny afternoon, while middle schooler Yusuke is finally going to, school, Hiei shows up and gives Yusuke a videotape. For those of you who are younger, videotapes are what we used before DVDs. What's a DVD? Google it. Yusuke then asks the same question that the audience does: why isn't Botan delivering his mission? Since, that's her job, and totally not a contrived reason to shoehorn Hiei into this arc, because that is the only time that Hiei ever does this. Koenma, because he always makes good decisions, decided that the best thing to do to keep Hiei out of this mission was to just have him hand-deliver the mission to Yusuke personally, thus informing Hiei of the mission. This is just the biggest brain move of all. Yusuke and Kuwabara, because he's here now, yay, head to Kuwabara's house where he receives the mission from Koenma. And Botan is here too. The person who gives Yusuke his missions? What was all that with Hiei? I thought we were going to stop that thing where we forget what happened earlier in the episode, but nope, that's still happening. Okay, it's hard, man, because in 4 episodes, this anime will completely turn around and be absolutely beyond amazing. Remember, you just gotta keep moving. Okay, back to the mission. An ice maiden demon named Yukino has been kidnapped by the evil crime lord Tarukane, who has her locked up in his mountain estate. When Yukino cries, you see, her tears become jewels that Tarukane can sell. But secretly, she's actually Hiei's sister, though she doesn't know that yet. But you know who does know that she's Hiei's sister? Hiei does. So it'd be best not to let Hiei get anywhere near this mansion, or else he might... Wait, what do you mean Hiei already knows about all this? And if he kills a human, that's it for him? No more redemption arc? Well, it's a good thing he doesn't know where he's going then. What do you mean he knows where he's going? Well, then it's a good thing that he's a demon known for his extreme slowness and lack of action. Wait, where is he going? What do you mean he's already there? But we just found out about this like an hour ago. And thus begins the super impactful Hiei arc, where he runs around in circles for a few hours, then waits around while his sister is in danger, not doing anything, just so that he can lurk in the shadows while Yusuke and Kuwabara take their time getting there. And they literally had to go through this epic side quest of figuring out the bus maps first, since Spirit World can't afford any other form of transportation for them. Hiei, do you care about your sister? Because I don't know. Because you're literally going to do nothing for hours on end. She could have died by now. And also, Botan, don't you know how to fly? Can't you just fly us there? Sorry, had a little bit of a logic moment there. Back to this story. Oh hey, Kuwabara's sister also has spirit powers as well. That's good to know. She's cool. She gave him bus money. And Kuwabara didn't actually want to go along with Yusuke this time, but then he saw how pretty Yukino was, and so he's now on board. Poor guy. Does anyone ever want to tell him that he never gets the girl? Yusuke, Kuwabara, and I guess Botan then have to make their way through the forest and up the mountain to save Yukina. Terukune, though, has hired some special guards, demon guards in fact, the Apparition Gang, led by, pause for dramatic effect, keep pausing, hold it there, younger Toguro, who, for simplicity, I'm just going to call Toguro moving forward. Elder Toguro is there as well, but he doesn't really talk that much during the story. Toguro, what can I say? Yeah, he looks like a Terminator ripoff. Sunglasses and muscles, we get it. And yeah, his powers aren't super creative once we get into it. And yeah, how tough can you be if your name includes younger in it? But this guy, this is the guy we've been waiting for, you guys. This is the guy who will turn this entire anime around. You just keep watching him. Trust me. Okay, back to our gang. Yusuke, Kuwabara, and Botan have finally arrived at this scenic location, and when you look at that, the bad guys already know they're there. So much for the stealth approach. A magic statue at a mountain bus stop gave them away. I mean, I guess it's alerted due to spirit power, but Kuwabara's known for his spiritual awareness, and he didn't feel anything happening. Guess he has other things on his mind. Back at the mansion, Toguro shows off his power to increase his strength by percentages. It's a very basic ability, but also one that's super effective, as it only takes 30% of his strength to defeat a genetically engineered monster. It's basically like in an RPG, where you just pour everything into physical and you ignore everything else, like special abilities, or dodging. Sometimes simple works. After a couple of demonic encounters, our plucky trio decide to call it a night and go camping in the middle of a forest surrounded by monsters. Yep, that sounds just about right. And Hiei decides to fall asleep in a tree because his sister's not in danger or anything. Yep, that sounds about right. He has a dream about his third eye getting implanted, and then he has flashes to seeing his sister as a little girl, and I realized that I have no attachments to either of them. Man, you guys remember Kuwabara's friends? I miss those guys. Okay, so now it's morning time, and if I had been Terukune, I would have just left with Yukina, but that's just me. You know, even if there's a 1% chance that you could lose your gold mine, you don't take the risk. But a bad guy's got a bad guy. So, in addition to being a demon trafficker, Terukune is also a gambler, and he's assembled a group of wealthy businessmen with underworld ties to bet on various contests known as the Black Club. I know, it's a very original name, isn't it? It's way better than the Evil Club. Pay attention to Sayako, the one on the left. He's the only one who's constantly going to be betting against Terukune. He'll be important going forward. The first bet is simple. The intruders versus the members of the Apparition Gang in the forest. Everyone bets on the gang, but Sayako, he bets on our would-be heroes. Well, Yusuke and Kuwabara make quick work out of everyone in the forest. Sayako 1, Terukune 0. And I have to say, the image of Yusuke and Kuwabara, the man, coming out of that fiery explosion and showing off their spirit power, that's just the best. Next, our group enters the mansion and faces off against the Demon Triad, a group of 3 demons. Once again, Sayako bets on our heroes. First off is Miyuki, whom Kuwabara refuses to fight because he doesn't hit women. Yusuke, on the other hand, is a lot more egalitarian and takes her on. After some fact-checking, he beats her, and we're just gonna move on. You too, Kuwabara, move on. The second demon, Inmaki, appears. He's some sort of ninja who moves around super fast, or maybe he's just invisible? It's not super clear. Anyway, they run down a hallway, he follows, and Yusuke takes him out with the spirit shotgun technique, which basically just blows a massive amount of energy in one direction. I mean, I know that these are just underlings, but man, at least make things a little interesting from time to time. Anyway, Sankishu, the third demon, arrives and gets promptly kicked in the face for his trouble. So, I guess that's interesting. Sayako 2, Terukune 0. Also, Kuwabara has now developed telepathy, and he can mentally talk with Yukina. Okay. Also, Yukina has the power to know that the voice in her head belongs to a human being and not a demon or spirit or anything else for that matter. Okay, I have to say that if I were ranking superpowers, being able to tell if a voice in my head was human or not would be very low on that list. And, oh yeah, Hiei's still here, and he's been, I don't know, practicing looking cool? Because even though Yusuke and Kuwabara have literally been blowing stuff up and blasting out their powers, Hiei just now arrived at the mansion. It's like someone is playing the drums next to you, but you instead hear the buzzing of a bee 20 feet away. Nice one, Hiei. Remember when he took that nap in that tree? It's the final confrontation, the final bout between our two young heroes and the fearsome Toguro brothers. We've got an arena and spectators, a maiden in peril, high stakes. All we're missing now is the popcorn. We finally get to see Elder Togoro's power, which is shapeshifting, and I have to say, I've always been a little freaked out by him. His weapons he forms are just strange looking, and there's an eerie creepiness to him. I just think that both Toguro brothers are just so well defined in how they use their powers. Things are not looking good, as Toguro keeps on the attack. Now he's using his brother as a sword. And now Kuwabara is bleeding from a single punch. I think this is the first time we've ever seen him bleed like that. Yeah, he's taken several beatings and gotten some broken bones, but this is the first fight that we've ever seen, anything like this. It's just brutal. Yusuke tries his spirit gun, which misses, and his spirit shotgun, which misses, and Toguro just blocks them all. Even a point-blank shot gets deflected. And remember, Togoro's power is increasing his strength, so we don't even know how strong he is at this point, and he's just literally ripping through our guys like they're nothing. Until now, the worst we really saw was when Rando, shrunk Kuwabara down and broke his arm, but man, this is getting brutal. So what do we need right now? Some protagonist juice, that's what. Kuwabara, who recently developed the power of telepathy, now expands that power to be able to see Yukina's memories. I don't really have anything against this, since Kuwabara has the best spiritual awareness of all of our characters. I just wish it had been brought up better. Like, maybe Kuwabara could mention that he started to hear the voices of other people in his head or something. Just something other than the power of love. We see a memory of some no-name bodyguard who used to work for Terukune, who tried to save Yukina and was killed as a result. This causes Kuwabara to level up in the middle of the boss fight, but he's still no match for the Toguro brothers. Kuwabara, though, has a plan, and as he rushes at Toguro, Yusuke fires a spirit gun into his back, which accelerates him forward, and he's able to stab Toguro in the gut. And now, Toguro falls, sword in chest. We celebrate our team's strategic victory, except we've seen much weaker characters survive being stabbed before. Also, Toguro has taken virtually no damage up until this point. Also, he's a demon, so there should be a certain level of toughness to him. Also, he's massive, so a tiny hole going through his body shouldn't do that much damage. It's also not like it went through his head or his heart, or whatever demons need to survive. Also, Elder Toguro is still there, and he wasn't hurt or in any way. What is going on here? You know what? I'm just gonna stop it there. This was pretty unbelievable to me when I first watched this, and it's still pretty unbelievable to me now. And not because I know what's about to come, but the fact that our team doesn't question any of it. But we really just need to move on. Terukune tries to escape, but finally, after what seemed like a million episodes, but in actuality only 4, Hiei shows up, and oh look, no sword, unlike every other appearance of Hiei we've ever seen or will ever see of him. That's because, Hiei can't kill any of these people, because if he does, he gets condemned, and then Spirit World will likely have to send Yusuke after him a second time. And as I already said it the last time I saw him, Hiei will forever be a babyface from now on, so we can't have that. Hiei, of course, tries his very best to subvert our expectations and beats on Tarukane, but Yukina stops him before he can finish the monster off. And I mean the monster of a human being, not an actual monster. Though in this series, who knows sometimes. And look, Hiei says that he's their friend. That's nice. And oh hey, Kurama's here too. Yay! Did you teleport here, buddy? Because it literally took you like 5 minutes to travel all the way from Spirit World, up a mountain, through a forest, and then make your way to the exact same room that everyone else is in. If you could move so fast, why didn't you just get sent in the first place? I mean, our heroes had to camp out overnight since the trip took so long, but oh well, glad the entire gang is here. Oh, Kuwabara. I really wish you'd get your happy ending after all this, but knowing the future, I know you'll never get the girl, and I'm sorry. You're still the man though. And then they all went home and still nobody bothered to check the bodies. They also let Tarukane go because even though he's a horrible excuse for a human being who actively traffics in demons and genetic monsters and who kills innocent people, apparently Spirit World is just okay with that. Wait, why did Spirit World even care about it this time? Yukina means nothing to them, and she literally just leaves after this. Was all this just to stop Hiei from killing Tarukane? But why? If he kills him, and that's on Hiei, not Spirit World, why does Koenma care so much about Hiei that he's willing to risk Yusuke's life? You know, I don't know what Spirit World actually does. Like, Spirit World never actually states what their actual purpose is, other than the place where souls go when they die. Are they supposed to be hunting demons? Are they supposed to be helping demons? Are they supposed to be protecting the human world? I don't know, because I don't think the anime knows either. Jeez, if I keep thinking about this, it's going to drive me crazy. And that wraps up Season 1, the Spirit Detective Saga. Not much detecting was there. Review time. Overall, the first part of the series is just a giant mess. There are definitely some good parts, but the bad parts are really bad at times. I will once again 100% admit that I'm viewing this anime through nostalgia goggles. But even then, wow, a lot of things were just a lot worse than I remembered. Because I know how everything turned out, I can get past all the problems that the series has, but that doesn't mean that those problems aren't glaring or insane. Things just happen because they need to happen. There's barely any development. Things are set off and paid off in the same episode, and we constantly forget what just happened a few minutes ago, even in the same episode. And most of the fights just last seconds. There's barely any time with any of the villains because they just get killed off immediately. And the teleporting. People just show up whenever they need to show up with no explanations on how they got there. There are basically 4 mini arcs at the start of the series. I really did enjoy the first 5 episodes, which I think are really solid, except for a couple of problematic areas, since it mostly dealt with Yusuke's death. I think Yusuke is given a good enough characterization that we're easily on board with him as the main character. He's just a tough kid who ultimately does the right thing, and he saves innocent people. And he doesn't understand how important he is to those around him until he's literally already passed away. Keiko, she's just great overall. Again, I don't really know what she sees in Yusuke, but apparently there's something there, as she'll be devoted to him throughout the entire series. Unfortunately, outside of these first few episodes, she'll no longer be that important and will either be constantly the damsel in distress that needs to be saved, or else she'll just be worried in the background. As the series moves away from school and regular life, her role will just keep getting more and more diminished. She's just that girl who will always be waiting for you once you've gone through all your adventures and you're now ready to settle down. I don't like it, but that's what she's going to be. Poor Keiko. Kuwabara, the man himself, and that's not me saying that, that's Kuwabara. What more can I say? He's the best character in the series. He's a loyal friend, he helps people, and he's a good person. He only has 1 or 2 questionable character moments throughout the entire series, and probably the worst thing about him is his simping for Yukina. But he's actually quite respectful most of the time. He listens to his big sister, he cares about animals, and he's willing to risk his life for no reward. I could go on and on about the man Kuwabara, but we'd be here all day, and I've already talked a lot about him throughout the review. In summary. Also, despite all the craziness, he still always goes to school, even if middle schools are nightmares in this world. It's really weird how evil teachers and middle school bullies are so important at the start of the series, but are then completely ignored afterwards. And I agree that they should be ignored, as those parts were probably the most boring for me. In all honesty, I think we could have scrapped all of it if we just got more character interactions between our main characters. I would have liked to have seen more of Spirit World and how everything actually works. I always love it in Japanese media when ogres run the afterlife. It's great in Dragon Ball, and it's nice to see it here as well. We barely get to see any functions of Spirit World. However, this is more of a personal preference on my part, and what we get is fine. Botan, man, she's the real MVP of this series. She's always there to help Yusuke, which, yeah, I know it's her job, but she actually cares about him. Botan is the one on the front lines actively doing her best when there are other people who just sit around watching. And then the series just completely changes, and immediately after Yusuke comes back to life, he's sent to fight a bunch of demons. I will say it again. It's completely insane that Koenma sent this untrained kid to fight a bunch of demons. You can say, well, he had no other choice, and that is wrong. He had other options, a lot of other options that we'll talk about later. And these demons are freaking demons. They have actual superpowers. It's just completely reckless and dumb, and Koenma is dumb, and he'll never stop being dumb. Most of the story feels like the author wrote the outcomes first, and then wrote the steps to get to the outcome, and then showed us those steps. Yusuke wanders down a street and finds Goki in less than 5 minutes. That's insane. And they never establish any reason as to why this city seems to be the focal point for demonic activity. You can literally just say something like, of course everything happens here, this is where our main characters are. But that's an out-of-world explanation to avoid the fact that it's just bad writing. Kurama was the best part of this second arc, but overall I found that Kurama has the most concise character writing of all the characters. Not necessarily the best writing, and he's not given a huge amount of moments, but his writing is very concise, and it's always clear who he is and what he wants. These years spent as a human has really changed him, and he's doing his best to save his mom, repay his debts, and help out his friends. He's very calm and understanding, and although he's not an especially complex character, that doesn't mean he's not a good character. Hiei, man, he just suffers from villain of the week syndrome. Again, I get it. He was never supposed to be the main character or a main character, so it's okay how he acts when he gets first introduced. His personality though just completely changes once he's defeated though. You know, Yusuke is given gadgets that he almost never uses after they get introduced. He's a spirit detective that doesn't ever do anything but fight. He either runs into things by coincidence or the story just makes it happen for him. Things are not planned out or allowed to develop. They just happen because the plot needs them to happen. This part was pretty rough. The absolute best parts of this first season is when we move on to the Genkai tournament. Even though the fights are pretty short, they're still pretty interesting, and the few contestants that we see are also very unique as well. And we finally get some explanation on how spirit power works through the games that are played in the arcade. This little tournament arc is just a small taste of the absolute greatness that is about to come. Even though they're brief, the fights here start to show us just how great the combat in this series will become. I really like how both Yusuke and Kuwabara act throughout this arc, even though there just are too many plot contrivances. It's literally a joke now that Yusuke and Kuwabara have no training, and yet They have to fight opponents who have been using spiritual powers for years and keep winning. The series is literally telling you that training doesn't matter because you'll never need to spend any amount of time on it. And again, I absolutely concede that most people won't have a problem with this, but man, when compared to a lot of other great animes where you get to see the growth and the development of the character, this series really runs short. And you know the one series I can wholeheartedly praise for its excellent depiction of character growth in terms of battle strength? Hunter x Hunter, the series that Togashi will write after this one. It's literally like going from writing a children's pop-up book to writing a classical novel in terms of the difference in how each series handles the main character's strength progression. Yusuke gets 3 straight plot contrivances to get him out of this part of the story. I don't think I've ever seen this before. Sure, a character might get 1 or 2 during an arc, but 3 of them in a row? First, he just so happens to find Genkai's cigarette, which really should have gone out already, and places it on his opponent for the win. Then, he just so happens to fall into a swamp, letting him win the next round. And finally, he just so happens to have moss in his ears, letting him beat Rando. It's just crazy, the fact that he doesn't win a single fight through his own strength or abilities, except for that bat demon who wasn't even part of the tournament. And of course, all of the training is literally done between episodes, and all we get is a 20-second montage, and then we're off to fight the Saint Beast. After a pretty great tournament arc, even one filled with so many plot contrivances, we suddenly dip so low in quality that I think that this is the lowest point for the series for a while. These fights are just jokes. Ginbu flings some rocks around and then he's dead. Kurama is hurt by these rocks, which I bet isn't any worse than, getting stabbed by Hiei previously. And this was just an excuse so that he wouldn't be more helpful. Seiryu dies in a few seconds. The only meaningful fight we get is between Kuwabara and Byakko, and that's only because he somehow learned to teleport once he fell off that bridge. I don't know. I just don't know. Hiei is literally still at full strength during the final fight, and yet it takes the guys multiple episodes to cut through a bunch of plant zombies just to get to Yusuke, who is having his one-on-one fight. If the guys actually took some serious damage throughout each of their fights so that Yusuke was forced to be the only one who went up, that would have made sense. Or maybe there was an actual countdown that we needed to overcome, and each of our team members has to be left behind to deal with their own Saint Beast. That could be interesting, but no, that's a lot better than what we got. A bunch of slow-moving plant zombies that Hiei apparently can't take out in the blink of an eye, even though he was able to cut Seiryu 16 times in less than a second, and Kurama with his hurt tummy, and Kuwabara who's just out of power right now. And honestly, Hiei didn't even need the help of the others. He could have just finished everyone off himself. And they end up eventually running up the stairs, which of course crumbles down, and the only small piece that they're on stays up. That's so convenient. I bet all these obstacles they're facing will only last them for as long as it takes for Yusuke to beat Suzaku. Speaking of which, the fight between Yusuke and Suzaku though is pretty good, and the only interesting part I think in this arc. I think that Suzaku has a really good design and his powers are really cool. You normally don't associate lightning with phoenixes, so that was nice. Their fight dynamic was also good, with Yusuke doing his best to get back the whistle and Suzaku constantly playing keep away. Yusuke once again makes the ultimate sacrifice and burns out his life energy, and this is the first of our death fakeouts that we get in this series. Except, the more I think about it, I'm not that worried about death in this universe, because yeah, it would be bad if one of our characters died, but the first death, we already saw that, and we do know that souls exist in this world, and that when good people die, they get rewarded. So as I'm watching these fake outs, I'm thinking to myself, yeah, but since they're a good person, they'll just get rewarded in the afterlife. I mean, you know Koenma personally, and he's the judge. Maybe that takes away some of the stakes a little bit when you know that where these guys are going if they do happen to die, I guess. And finally, moving on to our last mini arc, I think that everything about the Toguro brothers is interesting, and they're both just super creepy. They really just built up during each of their appearances, and of course the twist is coming, so it's all going to be worth it. Trust me. Unfortunately, Yusuke and Kuwabara just blow through the rest of the opponents in mere seconds, so the fights really aren't that great. It's really bad when you have a shonen anime about fighting that has really bad fighting. And I mean really bad fighting. The best we saw was probably the short fights we saw in the Genkai tournament and the one fight against Suzaku, but almost all the rest were just terrible. The Ginbu fight was probably the worst, as he actually had a glowing red weak point, but when most of the fights in the first part of the series falls into the categories of too fast and nothing really happened, that's not good company to keep. And Hiei, what is up with him? This is what I'm talking about when I say that Hiei just constantly has bad writing. In his first appearance, he's just a villain of the weak bad guy. In his next, he's a committed team member who wants to help out his team. All the conflict between them is gone. And in this appearance, I guess, he's just an angry brother who wants to rescue his sister, but he spends most of the arc running around the forest in circles. And you might say, well, he didn't know where she was, to which I'll respond, A, he literally could have just followed Yusuke and Kuwabara. I mean, they were going in the right direction, and he did sleep in that tree next to them. And B, there were tons and tons of demons around. He couldn't have sensed any of them? Come on, seriously? Again, this story constantly feels like the outcome gets written first, and then the steps to that outcome gets written next, but then those steps don't make any sense, and the author just went with it. In this example, we want Hiei to be in the same room as Terukane so that Yukina can stop him, but in order to do that, Hiei can't be part of the fight because we want this 2-on-2 situation to happen, so instead, he's just going to do nothing for the entire duration of our group storming the mansion. It's only at the very end that he arrives, despite being next to everyone earlier. And yeah, Kurama just teleports there as well, just so that we can have the whole gang together in one place. The writing is just really bad at the start of this series. Things just happen because they need to happen, and not because it really makes any actual or logical sense. The fights are either really, really bad for the most part, or they're over in a few minutes, if not seconds. There are a few powerful moments, but before we've even had any time to process them, we're already off to the next story. Overall, I think that the premise started out really interesting, and we had a lot of good interactions between our human characters, but then everything just changed. There are absolutely parts that I really liked, but the inconsistencies and the plot contrivances are just really noticeable, and a lot of this could be forgiven if, in this shonen battle anime, there were any actual good, fights, but those are so few and far between. I've watched a lot of animes and a lot of shonens in particular, and I also like to go back and rewatch really great fights in those different animes. If you were to ask me right now, is there any fight that I would go back to watch during this first part of this season? And I would say, absolutely not. There is no way that I would ever want to watch any of these first fights in these first 25 episodes. So you might be asking, wait, why do you love this series then? Why is it that you said it was one of your all-time favorites if you have so many problems with it? And the answer is actually really simple. Because the next arc, the Dark Tournament arc, is, in my opinion, the greatest tournament arc in all of anime. I've watched a lot of anime, and I have never seen any of them implement a tournament arc better since Yu Yu Hakusho did it over 30 years ago. Its sheer incredible awesomeness makes everything up to this point worthwhile. This is the arc that I constantly rewatch, this is the arc that I will talk about the most, and this is the arc that changed my opinion on this series. And it's only too bad that it took 25 episodes for us to get here. Anyway, that's another arc for another day. Thank you so much to everyone for watching this video. It was my first, and I'm still getting the hang of this, so we'll see how this one goes. The first part of the series was rough, but it gets better, much better from this point on. Trust me. Thanks everyone.